Have you ever asked yourself, quietly late at night, is it still okay to want this? To feel this? To need this? Or maybe, have I outgrown intimacy? I'm 65. I've lived through love, loss, menopause, grief, raising children, saying goodbye, starting again. I thought I had closed the chapter on pleasure a long time ago. Not out of shame, but out of silence. It just wasn't something I thought belonged to me anymore. Until one day, it came back. Quietly, gently, like a whisper I had forgotten how to hear. And it changed everything. In this episode, I want to tell you my story. Not to be provocative, not to be brave, but because I think more women need to hear that they're not alone. This isn't a sex story. It's a soul story. It's about returning to your own body after years of putting yourself last. It's about rediscovering the woman inside the woman. If anything I say today speaks to your heart, please let me know. Leave a comment, follow this podcast, or share it with another woman who needs to feel seen. Now let's begin. For many years, I truly believed that part of me, the part that once craved closeness, that spark, that fire, had faded for good. I didn't mourn it, at least not openly. I just accepted it, the way we accept gravity or gray hair. A natural part of aging. Quiet goodbye to that younger, hungrier self. When my husband passed, I was 58. Our intimacy had already been fading. Gently, respectfully. We didn't talk about it much. Life became about appointments, medications, grocery lists, and silence. After he was gone, I filled that silence with errands, phone calls, and the sound of my own slippers shuffling across the kitchen floor. No one ever asked if I still felt desire. Not my daughters. Not my doctor. Not even myself. And then, one evening I listened to a podcast. Much like this one. A woman, older than me, was talking about self-pleasure. Not joking. Not apologizing. Just speaking. Calm, honest, unashamed. I didn't know what shocked me more, her candor or the way my chest tightened while I listened. I realized how long it had been since I thought of my body as mine. Not a vessel to serve others. Not a machine that needed fixing. But a place of pleasure. Place of softness. Meanness. That night I lit a candle. Just one. No music. No expectations. Just curiosity. I lay on my bed like a stranger in my own home, and placed my hands on skin that had not been held in years. It was not erotic. It was emotional. I wept, because I had forgotten how much I missed touch. Even my own. And I wasn't ashamed. I was sad. I was tender. I was human. And I was alive. That was the first time in 30 years I touched myself. And the first time in decades I felt like myself. The days after that night felt different. Not because I had rediscovered some long-lost sexuality, but because I was paying attention. To me, my skin felt more responsive. My breaths were deeper. I wasn't rushing through my mornings like before. I began putting lotion on slowly instead of slapping it on while multitasking. I began dressing in softer fabrics, things that felt good against my body, not just looked tidy for errands. Little things that felt big. That one night of self-touch became a habit. Not daily, but often enough to feel like I was reconnecting with someone important, someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. Me. Physically, I noticed things too. Dryness became less severe. I slept better. My mood, that sluggish heaviness I thought was just being old, began to lift. But most surprisingly, I began to trust my body again. To listen to its whispers, not just its warnings. I used to only touch my body when something hurt. Lump, cramp, stiffness. Now I was touching for joy, for curiosity, for no reason at all. And something magical happened. I stopped being angry at my body for aging. I stopped scolding it for its softness, its creaks and changes. I started thanking it for holding me, for staying, for still responding. There's a beauty in knowing your body not as a performance for someone else, but as a sanctuary, place where you can feel safe and seen. I wasn't chasing climax. I was chasing connection, and I found it in the hush of my own room, with no one watching, just me, and the woman I was learning to love again. We often think of self-care as green smoothies, morning walks, or journaling, all of which are wonderful. But there's a quieter form of self-care no one talks about. Pleasure. Not indulgence, not sin, but the kind of slow, sacred pleasure that says, I am still here. I still deserve joy. After that first experience, I began to integrate self-pleasure into my life like I would a soothing ritual. Not always sexual, sometimes sensual. Sometimes it was just running my fingers over my arms in the bath. Other times it was letting myself breathe deeply while feeling warm skin under silk sheets. No rush, no shame. This was new for me. I grew up in a generation where women were taught to serve, not savor. Where we bathed to be clean, not to connect. Where pleasure was private, if it existed at all. But now, I see it as healing. Because pleasure reminds me that I am still inside this body. Still capable of feeling. Of responding. Of being present. It became easier then to forgive myself. For aging. For forgetting. For waiting so long. And that forgiveness turned into softness. Toward my body, my past, even toward my inner critic who used to whisper, "You're too old for this." She doesn't visit me as often anymore. And when she does, I smile. 'Cause I know better now. Rediscovering self-pleasure didn't make me feel younger. It made me feel real. I didn't wake up with tighter skin or more energy. But I woke up with a new kind of knowing, the kind that says, I am still a woman. Not despite my age. But because of it. I used to walk past mirrors without looking. Now I pause. I smooth my hair. I admire my smile lines. Reminders of laughter. I look into my own eyes and say, you're still here. I wear colors again. Take long bath. I dance barefoot in the kitchen. Not because I want to be seen, but because I've finally started seeing myself. I once believed intimacy had to come from someone else. But I've learned that the most intimate relationship I'll ever have is with me. And yes, some days are still lonely. Yes, I still miss being held. But I no longer feel empty. Because I have learned how to hold myself. That's what this journey has been. Not a return to youth, but a return to wholeness. For most of my life, I didn't talk about pleasure. Not with my sisters. Not with my friends. Not even with my late husband. It was just one of those things we didn't say out loud. We joked about the change when menopause came. We laughed at hot flashes and whispered about libido, like it was something to be embarrassed about. Like it was unladylike to want more. Or anything at all. And for the longest time I carried that silence. Even when I started exploring my body again, I kept it hidden. Not out of guilt, but out of habit. The habit of being quiet. Of minimizing myself. Of staying small so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But here's the thing. Shame grows in silence. And when you speak truth, even just to yourself, shame starts to shrink. The more I touched myself without judgment, the more I began to unlearn the messages I had absorbed since girlhood. That pleasure was only for men. That aging made me invisible. That good women don't touch themselves. That sexuality had an expiration date. None of that is true. One evening over tea, I told my closest friend about my journey. I whispered it at first, bracing myself for her reaction. She laughed. Not at me, but with a kind of relief. Then she said, you too. Turns out we had both been on this path. Alone. In the dark. Afraid to speak. Even though we were both longing to connect. That moment cracked something open. Since then I've had more and more conversations. Quiet, brave, beautiful ones. With women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. We talk about body changes. About desire. About vibrators. About grief. About release. And with every conversation, a little more shame melts away. There's something sacred about breaking silence. About reclaiming the parts of you that you once felt you had to hide. And it's not just for you. It's for every woman who's still trapped in silence. So if you're listening and you felt the weight of shame on your shoulders, please know this. You don't have to carry it anymore. You are not dirty. You are not selfish. You are not wrong. You are human. You are worthy. You are still whole. And most of all, you are not alone. So if you're listening to this right now and wondering, could I feel that too? The answer is yes. You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not alone. This isn't about sex. It's about self-reclamation. You don't need to do anything extravagant. Just listen. Breathe. Begin. In the next episode, I'll share practical, gentle ways to explore self-pleasure, especially for women over 50 or 60. From tools to products to mindset, nothing graphic, just guidance. Because this is your body, and you deserve to feel good in it. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you walk away not just informed but seen. 'Cause you are. Until next time, take care of your beautiful self. And remember, pleasure isn't a luxury. It's a birthright.